'Tis the season to find glimmers.
Join us as we break script to find the glimmers and the triggers in Hallmark movies and The Way Home.
So grab your preferred cup of cheer with Fa La 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 and Ni.
Welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
I'm Lala.
And I'm Nini, and we are already on episode 5 of The Way Home. I can't believe we're halfway through. Can you believe this?
I know, but this series is so easy to binge. It's one of the most bingeable series out there.
I know. I'm wondering if you guys are like, why can't you put out the episode so we can binge? Yeah. Well, we're doing it this way because this literally leads up to January 15th. Like, we will literally finish reviewing episode 10 the week before January 15th when season 2 premieres.
I'm so excited.
Cannot wait.
I cannot wait.
It's so awesome to have something to look forward to like that in January, because after 40 Hallmark countdown to Christmas movies, and 20 Great American Family Christmas movies, and all the OG ones playing 24/7, it's like this huge letdown sometimes of like, what are we gonna do in January? The Way Home. That's what we're gonna do. So I don't think Lala has been watching Countdown to Christmas movies. But let me share with you what I've watched so far. And when I say watch, that's a relative term.
Okay.
Because remember, Hallmark movies for Nini means Nini's watching in the background unless I'm taking notes for the Breaking Script podcast. Okay. So it's like I'm doing laundry, or this is funny. You guys will laugh. Heidelberg Holiday, I watched while I was listening to Lala's edits of probably The Way Home podcast episode. And I'm watching Heidelberg Holiday on mute. This is an example.
What?
Listen, it blesses my nervous system because the scenery is gorgeous, because it's a legit like German Christmas market. I've never been to an outdoor Christmas market. So yeah, I really want to go. It was beautiful. I don't know the plot. I mean, I know it's an American girl, has German roots in her family, and she goes back to Germany to sell her ornaments. That's about all I know. And it was really pretty, and I don't know anything else. Kind of the same thing happened with Journey to Christmas. That's actually a Great American Family movie. Okay. Lala, do you remember? I was surprised that the lead is actually an Asian and she was a model. Do you remember reviewing that one in our boba break?
Very vaguely.
This is the one where she gets stuck with her basically Uber driver. And you're like,
oh
ew,
my gosh,
no.
yes.
I've seen Taken. I don't want to watch it. It was actually really light and fluffy. It was cute.
Oh, okay.
Didn't finish it, but I was watching it while I was doing like laundry or something. So Journey to Christmas and Heidelberg Holiday, I feel like are around the same, like, after watching half of them, I'm going to give it 4 bobas overall. But great for in the background, giving you all the Christmas feels.
Yes.
So I'll end with 2 more. Navigating Christmas.
Okay.
That was the Lighthouse movie.
Oh, and?
They had a lot of really fun Christmas games, I feel like.
Oh.
And it was about a single mom, and the son really bonded with Stephen Hussar's character. But yeah, we called it. It was like, no, thank you. It was better than I thought it was going to be. But again, a 4 or 5 bobas. The one that knocked it out of the park for me, A World Record Christmas. It is streaming on Hallmark Movies now. Yeah, and it's actually on Friendly TV or on Hallmark Channel. I can't remember when it aired, but you can go look for it. This is the one with the autistic son who broke the world record with the Jenga blocks.
Yes.
And it starred Nikki DeLoach, who I just love Nikki DeLoach so much. The writing was fantastic. So this is a couple that's married. So this isn't your typical Hallmark movie with a male and female lead that are it was about a married couple. And she's remarried, so it's a stepdad, and she has an ex-husband that makes an appearance. And it was just very real, and even the world record scene, I'm not gonna spoiler alert it, but it's not how you would expect it to, but it still gave you all the feels. Like, I was so super impressed. It was a little real, so heads up. I did have tears. So if you don't want to cry, don't go watch World Record Christmas. But anyways, that's all for the countdown. I feel like I did really good this week. That was a lot, I think, because it was a really heavy week.
You did. Well, I'm really excited because tonight, now, whenever this is going out, but tonight is Merry Scottish Christmas, and I have my cable to record it, so I can go and watch it whenever. And that one I have been looking forward to since we read the description, so I'm all in.
Yeah. And I feel like have you seen more previews? Because they've released longer ones.
No, the thing is like the channel in Canada that it plays on only plays the Hallmark on the weekend, and like it's not a channel. I don't really watch TV. If I'm gonna watch something, I'm gonna stream, so I don't really have a lot of exposure to any of the Hallmark stuff unless I'm watching Friendly TV or something like that. Here in Canada, again, very different. But I'm actually kind of excited because I have no expectations. Like, I have no idea what Merry Scottish Christmas is about. Just that the party of 5.
Yes, exactly. Well, I won't ruin it for you because I was a little surprised at the extra previews, but it made me more excited for it. So
okay, are you gonna watch it?
I am. I'm very excited. I might watch it with all the kids. So we'll see. We're gonna have movie night. We finally got Yum Earth candy canes is the brand that I like to buy, and they have a new blue raspberry flavor this year.
Ooh,
they're the organic, like no red 40, stuff candy canes. Anyways, so it's gonna be our first night with Yum Earth candy canes and hot chocolate. So the kids are really excited.
Wow. Do you know that there's no red 40 in Canada?
Yes, I do. You guys have no idea. When last year when I asked what your mom's girls, we've mentioned this on a previous episode, that Lala's mom and dad actually have fosters and precious girls. I was getting them gifts and they wanted candy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness. So I sent Lala home with candy, but with disclaimers like, I'm so sorry. It's just hard to find American candy that you can't get in Canada without red 40. Like, it's impossible.
I realized I bought them a 5-pound gummy bear that was entirely red, and I had no thought about that. So whoops.
Yep.
Yikes.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, yep, that's just a big blob of red 40.
Red 40.
We just bless it and
amen.
Pray over it and it'll be fine. I cannot wait to get into today's episode. So shall we do it?
Okay, let's get this summary started. Episode 5, Don't Dream, It's Over. Alice heads downstairs only to be surprised to see Brady cooking breakfast for Del and Kat. He tells Alice he thought he'd surprise her by stopping by the farm. They learn that the theater owned by Joyce and Jude is closing for good. Rita and Del are throwing them a retirement party. Their son Nick, who Alice dated in the past, will be there. In the present day, he's actually pushing 40. Brady asks Alice to play hooky and hang out, and she declines to study because she has an upcoming exam. When Brady asks Del to go out for the day, she too declines. Del warns Brady not to interfere as Kat and Alice are finally finding their stride in Port Haven. As Brady gives Alice a ride to school, Kat joins them. Alice is still fixated on the idea of Nick being 40. After Brady drops them off and departs, Kat confronts Elliot, hung up on the fact that he never told her about the time-traveling secret. Elliot advises Kat to find the positive in it. Kat wonders if she can change her current circumstances by going back to the past and fixing them. Elliot tells her it may not be possible. Del and Rita are at the cafe planning for the theater retirement party when they are interrupted by Byron. He asks Del out on a date, but she declines. Rita and Del join Joyce and Jude at the concession stand as they pack up the theater. There, Del has a flashback of the good time she shared there with Colton. Back at school, Alice confronts Elliot about not telling her that Nick is coming into town. Elliot says he is old enough to be her father now, so she shouldn't be so obsessed about his whereabouts. Alice says she was so focused on 1999 Nick that she never considered his life in the present. Alice runs into Spencer and Zoe, who asks if she's coming to the dance and if she would have a date. She tells them she's seeing someone named Nick, but he won't make it due to family plans. Back at the theater, Kat and Brady are assisting the cleanup. Kat finds old flyers of Jacob from when he went missing. In 1999, Kat is fresh out of the pond and watching Jacob play with his friend Danny in the woods. When they spot her, they think she's a witch and run off. In 2023, Alice runs into Dell in the kitchen. Alice asks Dell what she thought of her father as a young man, and she replies that he was confident. Alice thinks Dell might be confusing that with being pretentious. Dell suggests Alice start accepting new beginnings and let go of the past. The next morning, Brady brings over coffee as Kat is letting Finn out. He brought it for Alice, but Alice is already off to school. Kat and Brady decide to enjoy the coffee for themselves and catch up. They discuss Rachel and how things are not going well between her and Brady. Brady tells Kat she's been his best friend for more than half his life and he misses talking to her. Kat tells him not to mix up missing her as a friend with missing her as a wife. At school, Alice scrolls through Nick's Instagram and sees Elliot was his best man in his wedding. Alice bursts into Elliot's office to confront him about being in Nick's wedding, though he said he had lost touch years ago. Elliot admits he lied, and that Alice should not be concerned with him anyways because he's not her age. In 1999, teen Elliot is telling Alice the same thing, that she should not keep dating Nick because she is not from their time. When teen Elliot leaves for work, Alice begs to come to see Nick. Alice admits to teen Elliot that she is not fond of her dad in the present anymore because of what she knows about him in the past. Alice sees that teen Brady is over for dinner and teen Kat begs Alice to stay for the big night. At dinner, the family gets to know teen Brady. He tells them that he feels at home on the farm. In present day, the family eats dinner without Alice. As the conversation between Elliot and Brady get tense, Kat tries to interrupt. Dell excuses herself to go on a date with Byron. The two enjoy their first date at the Herald, and Dell invites him to the theater for the retirement party. Back in 1999, Teen Kat, Teen Brady, and Alice are in Teen Kat's room. Alice tries to leave, but Teen Kat begs her to stay. She takes off anyways, but steals a glimpse of Teen Brady, giving Kat a silver charm bracelet with the initials K and B. Outside, she runs into Nick, who wants to hang out for a bit. Alice joins him. In present day, Kat, Brady, and Elliot are at dinner. Brady leaves and kisses Kat goodnight. Elliot asks Kat to the high school dance as a chaperone. She agrees to it. She tells Elliot she went back to see Jacob and hopes to talk to him and warn him against the future. Elliot tries to tell her she should just be grateful she could see him again. Kat insists there's more to it. In 1999, Alice and Nick enjoy a date on the roof of his car. He wants to call her, but Alice says it's not possible because it's complicated. She asks him not to overthink it. Alice writes on the palm of his hand a future date for when they should meet at the Roxy. He shrugs it off and says he'll see her in the future, and they kiss. In 2023, Dell is prepping for the party. Elliot arrives in a suit ready to go to the dance with Kat. She comes down in a red dress, and Elliot is enamored. Brady unexpectedly enters to say goodbye to Alice. Kat thanks him for coming. Brady goes upstairs to see Alice, who tells him that he's changed since his younger years. He wonders how she knows this. They embrace. Brady is noticeably bothered. At the dance, Alice anticipates only one thing, and that is to see Nick. Elliot tells her not to get her hopes up. At the Roxy, the theater's packed as they watch the slideshow that Rita put together. Byron takes a seat next to Dell. The slideshow features a picture of her and Colton in their younger years in love. This memory causes her to cut things off with Byron, who is trying to show affection. Back at the dance, Kat and Elliot notice that Alice is having a good time, and they hope she doesn't go searching for Nick. As Kat and Elliot slow dance, Brady interrupts. Kat takes the conversation outside. When Brady tells Kat he's upset that Alice knows his character as a teenager, she wonders who told Alice. Brady accuses Elliot of that. Brady admits to being jealous of Elliot, while Kat admits she was jealous of Rachel. Kat tells him all she ever wanted from him was to be kissed and shown affection. Brady kissed her, and Elliot sees it happen. At the Roxy, Alice shows up hoping Nick remembers to meet her there. He doesn't, and the Roxy closes its doors for good. The stars above appear brighter. Kat gazes at them and thinks of Jacob. She pulls out his poster and stares at it, wondering if she can save him. Okay, now is a part of the episode where we give it a rating. So, Nini, overall, what do you give episode 5 of The Way Home?
I just love all the twists and turns. I
Yeah,
have to say, episode 6, which this might be just across the board for any The Way Home fan, but episode 6 is the ultimate, my most favorite episode. So this episode gets a 9 as composed compared to the next one, just because there's some cringy parts. Otherwise, it'd be a perfect 10,
I
right?
agree. I totally agree. This is a 9. Again, all of the episodes are gonna be in the high, like, 8, 9s, and 10s, but this one is a
Exactly.
solid 9.
Yeah, very solid. Like maybe it's a 9.5. It's just a little bit
Exactly.
less because it's a little cringy. But
Mhm.
let's just dive into the breakdown. Instead of our what's love got to do with it? I don't go chasing waterfalls. I go away with the poodles already. Jayo, fighting happily ever after. We start with Home Sweet Home, which is the glimmers, what we love, breaking down the romantic and family relationships. But we also need to introduce some main characters here, don't we?
I think so.
I mean, I think the biggest one is the fact that we're gonna potentially see Nick in 1990s. I mean, it's not a new character, but the fact that there's a possibility of seeing him in modern
2023?
day,
I know,
yes, is like, oh gosh, that's the biggest punch in the gut.
right?
That's the biggest cringiest part of this entire episode that makes it really tough. It's like a car crash that you can't like look away. Um and obviously that he has two moms and they're saying goodbye to the Roxy.
Yeah.
I think that's it though, right? What am I
Yeah.
missing?
I think those were the only 3 potential new characters that were really introduced. It's the idea of modern day Nick, and then Nick's 2 moms that, yes, own the movie theater in which Elliot works at and kind of a lot of their hangouts take place in.
So it's really important, especially in the next episode. So, glimmers. I mean, again, a beautiful open of open
Mhm.
waters sprinkled
I
with
know.
boats, a lighthouse, the fall colored trees. And then there's a 90s dance. I mean, the back to the 90s theme.
I know.
So nostalgic with 90s music at the dance and then having like the classic movie theater like 40s 50s music at the Roxy, like that is all feels for me,
I
all the
know.
glimmers. Anyways, what about you?
Um, I okay, we've talked about this before, but the music, just in general,
Yes,
like,
yes.
but I have to point out the song "Kiss Me" by Sixpence None the Richer, one of my all-time
Uh-huh.
top favorite songs, and just, like,
uh,
it brings me back to, like, probably not the '90s, but I think it was the early 2000s. Man,
yeah,
that just is, like, visceral for me. I loved
yes,
hearing that song. Um,
yes.
I also loved the '90s dance, but what I'll say is, like, even though it was supposed to be vintage, like old, like 90s, it felt like right now where we are in style and everything, it skews so 90s and early 2000s. So seeing them, it
Hmm.
actually just looked like modern day dance, Like I was like, wow.
It's
And it's funny because as a kid, I remember I would wear something and my mom or my aunts would be like, I used to wear that as a kid. And now
yeah,
I'm at the age where I'm like, I used to wear that as a kid.
it's scary.
I know.
I had the same thoughts. I was like, "Man."
I
I
know.
remember pulling out bell bottoms. This is no joke. I don't think Lala even knows this story. So I'm pretty sure I was in 7th or 8th grade
Mhm.
and I only had one pair of bell bottoms and I was begging my parents to get more. And my dad goes to his closet
No.
and pulls out, yes, his
No.
bell bottoms. And I legit wore them
That is so
all
your dad.
throughout junior high.
I
His bell bottoms from the
love that.
70s, from Taiwan in the 70s. He still
Okay.
had them in the 90s after moving 3 different states.
That is
So,
hilarious. That is so
oy
funny.
vey.
I also
Um,
I loved the dinner scene between
yes.
so like the movie starts out and Brady, they wake up in the morning and Brady is in the kitchen making breakfast. So he's kind of inserting himself in this like family dynamic, family life. And then Dell is having a
Mhm.
family dinner. Alice isn't there, but basically Kat's at dinner with Elliot and Brady's
Uh-huh.
there, and it's just this back and forth between Elliot and Brady. It's like a peacock fight, right? Like
Totally is,
who can
100%.
show their feathers. And
Yep.
Dell ends up leaving because she just thinks it's so childish. I thought that was really funny. I
Yep.
loved the conversation that Alice has. The complication of Alice feeling like she doesn't like who her dad was. And you can see she's
Mhm.
really unhappy
Yep.
that her mom ended up with him. Like she sees right through him, and the struggle to have relationship with him in modern day. But
Yeah.
she does come around, but it just adds that complexity to the storyline of like wrestling with the timeline.
Totally.
And she ends up telling him how much, like, she's talking to her dad, and she just says like, you've also grown up, which I think is a very
Yeah.
mature thing to say. And
Such
obviously
a mature thing.
he's confused because he has no idea, but I thought I really liked that.
I did too. It's funny because there were some things that I liked, but then it was like also in the surprising detours and um our dead ends of what we didn't like. Like I feel like it was in all categories. But I loved that Elle brought a corsage for Kat for chaperoning the high school dance.
I
It's so
know.
adorbs. And he's like, they clearly have feelings for
Yeah,
each other,
each
but
other.
he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a joke corsage," because she's like, "I was joking."
Just
And
I
Elle is like so nervous. He tells Kat she looks fine, and Brady walks in and immediately says she's stunning.
I know.
Like that bleeds over a little bit for me into surprising detours when you can kind of bring out that Omo Nardar of like,
Yeah.
I've actually heard people talk about how when they've come out of a narcissistic relationship or multiple narcissistic relationships and they go into like a healthy one, how boring it is. And I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I
Hmm.
wouldn't know. And so it was just like such a good representation of that. And
Yes.
then it's just so interesting that Brady walks in on Elle seeing Kat walk down for a dance, but it's like them back in high school. Like it just felt like it was reminiscent of like how you would feel if you're
You're not.
walking down for the first time for a high school dance. But she's
Yeah.
saying goodbye to Brady in that same moment. See, I liked the scene, but it bleeds over into surprising detours for
So
me.
let's just go
And
there. Yeah.
we're just going to go there where it's surprises, unhealthy behaviors, or coping mechanisms. First of all, let me just say the fact that this episode opens with Brady cooking, just ew. It just made me
I
ew.
know.
Like, first of all, it was surprising that Brady cooks, number one. And the fact
Right?
that he's like trying to be super dad of like he can
Yeah.
cook, but he can also be a farmhand and give Della a hand. Like, ew, who are you? Go away. Like,
Yes. It was the
just
ultimate ick.
yuck. Yes, ultimate ick.
I
Um,
cringe. Like I know we're jumping around here, and this will be in things that we don't like, but I just have to say it. I'm just not a fan of Brady. He's the worst.
yes, they casted him really well because he's super cringy all the way through. 90s Brady, 2023 Brady, like it's just all the way through. And to be really honest, for me, most of the surprising detours where we talk about unhealthy behaviors and coping mechanisms, but also surprises because there's so many surprises in the way home,
Yeah.
really could just be one section with dead ends of what we didn't like,
Yeah.
especially this episode, because the fact that Alice is following current day Nick on Instagram is just, but why?
I know. I think I understand. It's weird that it would be very confusing for her. But I'm
Of
like,
course.
I don't like it. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how to reconcile. I actually thought that that was a very interesting decision that they made for her to have a relationship with in the past, knowing
Mhm. Mhm.
that he would be older. Like,
Right.
I don't know if I like that, because in reality, for someone who's in their formative years as a girl, that would be very confusing for her.
Mhm.
I just felt
Mhm.
like that was a very mature decision that um a fluffy show isn't
Yeah.
really able to do justice and like navigate.
Exactly.
I didn't, yeah, that was my big thing, is like her wanting to date a 40-year-old or being interested in seeing him. I'm like, why? No.
Ugh, so
I,
cringy. And the
I
fact
also, sorry.
yeah, no, you go.
No, I also want to just jump back to Brady. Um, just it was surprising to me how much he is trying to win Kat over, but I guess I'm not surprised. Like he's clearly realizing that he
Mhm.
wants her back. Well, there's this complicated dynamic because there's
Right.
even a line where she says to him like, don't get missing me as a wife confused with missing me as a
Yeah,
friend." Like, but
exactly.
yet they have this tension and they end up kissing. Like he is using her for his momentary, like what he feels in the moment. Like he's clearly not thinking. He just is jealous that she's finally
Mhm.
moved on. I was
Mhm.
really surprised. I also didn't like that. That was kind of also a dead end for me. I digress. You can jump in here.
Well, I mean, let's just go there since you already brought it up because that's the biggest one that I was going to end on. Like the biggest, cringiest part. I mean, it's called hoovering, where it's like the narcissist just like hovers and won't let you go, but they want their cake and eat it too. And it's just disgusting. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so wrong to involve Kat in that level of him processing and going back and forth. Like leave her alone. And I love that Dell tells him, like, do not rock the boat. He warned her. She knew,
Yeah.
or she warned him, sorry. Um, I love that she stood up for her daughter in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, just even the fact that he walks in, first of all, he spends the night and Alice doesn't even know he's there. She wakes up to be surprised to find him in the kitchen, like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, that stinks.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good surprise. And why is Kat letting him drive them to where they need to go in the morning? Like he ends up driving them to school and Kat was gonna go with him directly to the Roxy, but she ends up seeing Elliot um, and stops to talk to him. And that's that whole conversation where he's, um, you know, involving scientific terms about time
But
travel, which
time
I was like,
traveling, yeah.
if I had time, I wanted to look up if those were like legit things. Like, where does that come from? And do people like study time travel in real life? And that's where this is coming from? Or what science fiction like Bible is there out there of like, where are all these rules of time travel and quantum physics? Um, but yeah, I just think it also blows my mind of like, he kept the secret for 25 years. And I totally fully understand. Like, I get both of them. I get why Kat is so upset, but
Yeah.
I also get why Elliot didn't say anything because he didn't want to mess anything up for fear of like how
Messing up
this
the
is going to mess it.
timeline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Again, watching Loki,
You right?
where this man turns into spaghetti. You're like, sorry if that's a spoiler alert. So I get it. I'm feeling it for real. But still, it makes you wonder. So I have more Alice. We'll get to that in the way we see it of theories of the Alice and Elliot theories. But yeah. Anyway, I just think let's go to a lighter one because talking about Brady just makes me so angry. But I love that at the Roxy, one of Nick's moms, I believe they call her Jude, is having trouble letting go of
I
stuff.
know. That was so
This
much.
is
She
an
kept
unhealthy behavior,
everything.
but it brought me a glimmer because the first thing she talks about having trouble letting go of is an Austin Powers
Where's it called?
outfit.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is a throwback.
That is funny.
But I come from a family, I don't know if it's just a Taiwanese thing. A lot of Taiwanese parents, I feel like, we have like grocery bags coming out our ears. Like I had an aunt who literally, I'm not even exaggerating, like their entire second floor of their apartment in Taiwan was just like, here's grocery bags. I remember going into their bathroom in one of their houses in the United States, and the entire shower was grocery bags.
No.
Yes.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
anyways, I talk about that because I don't know. I think it's a very common Asian parent thing to have Asian parents who are something that they're hoarding um, for just in case. But I will say one more thing because this section is really long for me. Um, This whole conversation between Alice and Dell about Brady.
Yeah.
Dell tells Alice that Brady was more worldly and confident than most people, and she thinks that's why Kat drew like what attracted Kat to
Yeah.
Brady was he was more confident, and Alice is confident or pretentious. And I was surprised that Dell didn't like affirm her in that. Like there's kind of that for me there's a wrestle of sometimes we confuse love and honor with not being able to speak truth. Because I
Yeah.
think when we're talking about someone unhealthy, it's important to say straight up to our kids what's healthy or unhealthy. Otherwise, they're not going to
Mm,
recognize it.
so
But
true.
especially if you grew up religious, like both Lala and I grew up conservative Christian, when we're afraid of saying it, we're instead of saying pretentious, we say that he's confident. That doesn't validate to a child that that's unhealthy. It's not okay.
Right.
And then we grow up not knowing what's healthy or unhealthy. So
Yeah.
that's something that I noticed. And I think it's really funny that Alice is avoiding her dad by jumping into the pond. And then she ends up at Kat's house in 1999 where we're preparing for the family dinner where Brady meets the parents. And I feel like if you have nothing else there, then we can just move into the dead ends, what we didn't like, shall we? Because it's a really long section for me.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, so there's that scene where, Brady is there, he brings coffee, you know,
Mm-hmm.
Alice has escaped him. Oops. Alice has escaped
Mm-hmm.
him, and it's just him and Kat. And that's kind of that line where she said, "Don't confuse me for being for
Yeah.
missing your wife as missing a friend or whatever."
Yep.
I think this whole relationship dynamic, whatever here, is confusing, and I don't like it. I feel like he just has his claws in her, and you can feel that there
Mm-hmm.
is this sense of an amicable relationship, like they're acknowledging that
Mm-hmm.
things didn't work out, there were good times and bad, but I just didn't like this.
Yeah.
It felt too comfortable for me.
Yes. Yes. It's exactly what you just said is exactly how it feels of it feels like he has his claws in her. Like he's got her hook, line, and sinker, but he's got one hook in her to not let her like because he still has that control so that she
Yeah.
can't fully break free. And so that level of familiarity exactly is how I think there's a statistic, um, and I believe it applies not just to domestic violence survivors. I say survivor instead of victim, but they are victims. They just don't like being called victims.
Mm,
Um, it also applies especially to covert emotional and psychological abuse, is that it takes most survivors, and this applies to men as well as women, um, 7 times. They
mhm,
will go back 7 times to their abuser before they can finally be free.
mhm.
And it's exactly what you're saying of like that level of familiarity. It makes you confused. It draws you back in. And it's hard because it's that conversation where Brady was saying, "You were my best friend for over half my life."
Mhm.
And there's that like, you're not missing your wife, you're missing someone, that companionship that you could control.
Yeah.
And it's just like, ugh, give it up,
'Cause
dude. Give her
even when
space.
even when he kisses her, right? So at the end and she's yelling at him like, "I needed you to hug me. I needed you to do all this stuff." And
Yeah,
then that's when he kisses. I'm like, it's so manipulative. Like you
very
are
much so.
literally doing what she asks, and all because you're jealous, all because you don't like seeing her with someone else.
Yeah.
And even the going back to that opening scene where he's making the I don't even know what he's making,
He
actually.
said omelets or something, the breakfast.
I don't know, but it looked
Oh,
like actually like a pita wrap or something that he was making, but
yeah.
or a crepe or something. And I was like, you know what? He would be the guy to not know how to cook and literally 20 minutes before YouTube it, watch it,
Oh,
pretend he knows how to
yes.
do it, and now he's
Yes.
an expert.
Oh my
Like
goodness. 100%. Yes. They're so
I
good at acting.
well, it's funny because like he is so good at acting because I don't even I don't like him at all. Like, I don't even like who they cast, but I think they cast well. They're doing so good
Yeah,
because I don't like him, and I just, like,
exactly.
want him to not be a part of this anymore.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just hate that he sucks Kat back in. He's not thinking about Kat when he does that. He's not thinking about Alice when he does that. Like, he's
No.
not considering everything that Alice is going through, even being there.
Right.
He was the one that brought up about her brother. Like, he is
Yeah.
so self-serving. Like, there's so many other things at play, and he is not
Mhm.
considering any of them. It's just, I know we love to hate on Brady.
I know, I know. But here's the thing, but that means they did their writing job
It's
really
true.
well.
It's true.
I think what really hurts is that conversation that you mentioned where it's like Alice was really mature and she's telling her dad, like, you said you haven't really changed. You're pretty much the same person, but you have changed.
Yeah.
It's that conversation. It's exactly what you just said. But to remember the conversation, that such a tender moment of Alice being mature is the conversation that's twisted. That
Mm,
is what causes Elliot
you're
or
right.
causes Brady to be jealous of Elliot. There's no empathy. And that's the key here is he has no empathy. He is
Mm,
being drawn back to Kate or Cat, sorry, not being drawn back to Cat, but that he's trying to draw Cat back in, and his feelings are towards her only because he's jealous of Elliot. And he's
yeah.
only jealous because he thinks that Elliot is the one feeding Alice information to make Brady look bad.
Right.
That is why he's doing what he's doing. It's all about him. It's not
Yes.
about anybody else. And it's disgusting, but the
I
way that
know.
he can manipulate Kat's emotions back into it is just so sick. The emotional psychological abuse is bleh.
Yeah.
Cringe, but again, brilliant writing because we're so angry and really hate him.
It's
I
so
mean,
true.
there's so much more we can say about that because especially I was like, ugh, it's not just a kiss. They're full on like heated making out. And then Elliot sees them.
I
It's just,
know. I feel
ugh.
bad for Elliot always gets the short end of the stick. And that's the thing they do a great job is you do really feel for Elliot despite there being, some question about him and his motives.
Mhm,
Sometimes
mhm.
you do feel like that inner child. You see that almost like that flashback to that teenage years of
Yep,
him being in love with Kat and just not it never is him.
right. Yeah, I think we could go on and on about that. Shall we move to something else a little bit lighter? Just a small
Yes.
thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
Why would you schedule a goodbye to the Roxy event the same night as the high school dance? Because I would imagine if it's such a
Mm.
icon of the town, it doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that they scheduled them at the same time. I get why it needed to be in the writing,
Yeah.
but plot
Do you
hole
think
to me.
do you think they're gonna keep it as a movie theater?
Is that in the theories? Because we know that's something we know definitively if you've watched all 10 episodes. But
Wait. Oh my gosh. Whoops, I forgot. See, I'm watching with fresh eyes.
I love it. That's fantastic. I don't know. In the
We'll
theories,
see.
let's talk about that. But yeah, I don't like that. And then let's talk about it. I hate that it's like this play on Alice's emotions too, because she's trying to escape her dad. She's trying to avoid her dad. So she flees into the 90s and
Mhm.
then ends up seeing her dad. So that's why when Nick pulls up to Kat's house to find Alice, that she so like wants to escape and that causes her emotions to be even more intense towards Nick.
Yeah.
And I hate that we're seeing two teenagers cozied up hanging out on the hood of Nick's car. Like, and this whole conversation about why he can't call her is because Elliot told him that her parents won't let her date. And then she writes a date on his hand and promises to meet at the Roxy on that date. And I was curious because she wrote a date on there, but did she also write a specific time that they're supposed to meet, or is he just supposed to like sit there for
Oh.
24 hours? Like
Oh, good question. Yeah,
I
because you
wrote
never see
OMG
it.
barf stop. Yeah, no. You never see what they write. And then they kiss more, and it's just like, Alice, stop. I just want you to stop.
I know, she's doing it to herself. She's setting herself up. Whenever you go into a relationship with an knowing there's an expiry date, it doesn't end well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, she's definitely doing it to herself.
And if you've never heard of the term cognitive dissonance, um, which would be more in the surprising detours, unhealthy behaviors category, look it up. Cognitive dissonance is where it's like you're not behaving according to how you believe. And so this episode is just a great display of both Kat and Alice's cognitive dissonance and compulsiveness on
Mhm.
display of like, I
So
know what I
true.
believe to be true, but I'm not acting in alignment to what I believe to be true. And man, it is super, super cringy, which is why we gave it a 9.5 instead of a 10 because of how cringy it is, even though it's brilliant, brilliant writing, excellent production, genius level. But yeah, what else you
Yeah.
got here?
Things I don't like. I think that pretty much covered it for me. I really felt very strongly about Brady in this episode. Um, and also just the fact that, which we're beating a dead horse here, the relationship with Nick, past and future.
Yeah, I have two big ones, and we're going to end with them before we
What?
move on to theories. Um, Number one, there continues to be some awkward tension between Spencer and Alice. Like when Alice goes to leave the dance, she doesn't tell Spencer's girlfriend. She tells
Oh,
Spencer. Like that's going to be in theories because what the heck? Why this thing between and the way that Spencer looks at her when she leaves? I don't understand it.
yeah.
The second one, which was should have been in surprising detours, but it really for me ends up in dead ends because it just was like so shocking and what? This is the first episode that we find out how old Rachel is. Brady's Rachel
Yeah,
is
26.
26 years
Yeah.
old. There's a 10-year difference.
Yes.
Um, I think it's like 55 and 45. Okay. But 35 and 26, which I'm thinking I don't know. I think Kat's around 35 and Brady maybe might be a year older. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyways, what I'm saying is what? Like that changes
I
adds
know.
even more to the conversation we were talking about of why he misses Kat because he's dating a kid. Um, just there's so much, but let's just move on to the way we see it, which is theories, which we
Okay.
can't wait to do this for season 2. But what do you got here, Lala?
Okay, so there is a scene, and I think it's towards the beginning of the episode, and Kat has gone back into the pond because she actually wants to see Jacob, and
Mm-hmm.
she comes out of the pond and she sees him playing with his friend Danny,
Yep.
and she hides, and they say the White Witch.
Yep.
Now, if we go back to the first episode, what are they yelling?
We don't know.
We
And
don't
that's the
know.
thing. I remember very vividly at this point in episode 5, I felt like the White Witch could be any 3 of the women. I thought it could be Dell, Kat, or Alice,
Yeah,
or is it all 3 of them at different times? Because
that's true.
when they go ahead.
No, it gave me this ominous feel of like exactly, like clearly they've seen someone before because he says the White Witch is back or something.
Right.
So he's seen someone before.
Right.
Who is that person? Is it even one of those 3? Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I think
Exactly.
spooks
There's
me.
so
It's like,
much.
what? Who? What?
Yeah.
And then you kind
Yeah.
of think back to the first episode. Like you're trying to tie it all together.
Totally. Because
Anyways.
there's not enough to tie it all together. But also, I think for me, because the whole Alice Nick storyline is so cringy of like a teenager dating a 40-year-old, it
Mhm.
made me wonder like, is it possible for Alice to show up as Alice, like her teenage self,
Yeah.
in different timelines? So, can she still be the same
Oh.
Alice in the 1800s? And so,
Oh.
is she the White Witch? Like, remember, because she was like, didn't show up in the
Right.
Polaroid. Like
Like
to me,
clear.
that's the
Yeah.
only way to make it okay. is maybe she shows up in a different timeline where it's okay for her and
Or
Nick to be
maybe
together.
she
Like,
shows up at the age of the other people because in the
that's
timeline she's coming
oh,
back as her
that's what I
mom's
meant.
age.
Yes. 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 That's what I'm
Oh,
saying. Like,
that's a
what if
good
she
one.
can? That's actually what I meant. Not that she time travels in the same age, but that maybe she can time travel and be a different age. And that's why
Ah.
she's a witch, because she's the only one that does that. But then it made me wonder, like, at what point, because now that Cat can time travel, at what point did that change? Like, is she going to time travel even more? And then at some point,
Mm,
she starts to remember herself in the timeline. Like, there's just so much. And then is Elliot like controlling it all
right?
because he's the scientist with the notes? Like, I still have this thought, like, is he actually the villain? Or is Dell the villain and she's just staying like so silent and we don't know anything until the end? Like,
Dell is the one that
ugh,
I'm definitely the most suspicious of because it feels like she knows.
yeah,
But
right? And
it
she's playing
feels like,
dumb.
yes, it feels like she knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then for sure, because I think this is the second time at this point, or maybe this is the first, I don't remember, but it's going to be repeated. Spoiler alert, it's not a huge one. Of that phrase that Jacob says of explorers use the stars to lead them home.
Mm,
What is that? The stars, explorers, witches, I don't know. There's something there.
there's
And
something there.
I love how we end and we don't meet Nick and we don't know what
I know.
happened.
I know.
It's just so fantastic. They have the best opens and the best cliffhangers
Yeah.
ever. It makes me so happy. That's all I got.
That's it. That's all I got.
So, final thoughts, favorite quote. I did have one favorite quote.
Oh,
Endings are also new beginnings.
love it.
It's
So
actually
true.
something I told my kids. I don't know if we talked about the fact that I'm divorced, but I am divorced. And I remember telling my kids, for some people, they'll look back on the divorce in their timeline. And don't get me wrong, there's so much grief.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be the thing that kids look back on and like, oh my gosh, that ruined our lives. Or we need to grieve with one another and be in the pain with one another and be able to sit with one another in it. Well, within safety. Sometimes we
Right.
cannot. We do not have the capacity. What I mean is like get professional help, but
For sure.
that it's an opportunity for healing, because that's really
Yeah.
what it is for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. It is an opportunity for healing. So that is my final thought, that endings are also new beginnings.
I love it.
That's it.
Well, thanks for breaking script with us. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for all the ways you can watch and follow along, and we'll see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.